The Chairman's mark is in front of you as a product of an open bipartisan process. As we begin, we are grateful for the professionalism of our SEALs in killing the mass murderer of Osama bin Laden. It's a proud day for all Americans, especially our military families, and veterans, and the intelligence community. At this time, I would like to highlight some of the more significant recommendations contained in the mark. The mark provides for a 1.6% pay increase for military basic pay. It sets policy for measuring and reporting unit operations tempo and personnel tempo, reflecting the committee's continuing concern about the stresses on the forces and proposed reductions in military personnel, especially at a time when we must continue our resolve for victory in the current mission requirements. Another initiative important to me is reform of the military recruiting system to include graduates of homeschooling, virtual schools, and charter schools. I see military services opportunity and fulfilling, and these are extraordinary patriots who have graduated from these different types of educational enterprises. The mark makes reductions in the numbers of general and flag officers to complement the administrative reductions directed by the Secretary of Defense. Furthermore, the mark consolidates and clarifies the legal authority for the administration and oversight of Arlington National Cemetery. Next, I believe that the mark is strong in the multiple provisions dealing with sexual assault, child custody, mental health, traumatic brain injury, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Finally, the mark includes a one-year prohibition on any increase in TRICARE prime fees. I want to do more, but the challenge of finding mandatory spending offsets limits what could be achieved. I am sure that there will be more discussion on this issue at the full committee markup, but I strongly believe military retirees have made significant down payments through their dedicated service to the nation. In view of that service, it is not right for the nation to ask them to pay more for health care to which they are entitled, as all citizens are being personally challenged by financially situations of the rising gas prices. In conclusion, I want to thank Ms. Davis and her staff for their contributions in support of the process. Of course, we are joined by an active, informed, and dedicated set of subcommittee members. Their recommendations and priorities are clearly reflected in this mark. Additionally, I appreciate the dedication of the subcommittee staff. On the majority side, John Chaplett, Jeanette James, Mike Higgins, Craig Green, and Jim Weiss. Before we get to consideration of the mark, I want to recognize Ms. Davis for any remarks she may want to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm certainly pleased to be here as we mark up the military personnel portion of H.R. 1540, the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2012. I want to thank you, particularly Mr. Wilson and the staff, for the bipartisan manner in which the mark has been put together. This mark attempts to continue to improve the quality of life for our service members and their families. They are our greatest strength. I have stated on numerous occasions that for over a decade, our service members and their families are bearing the brunt of military deployments required of a nation at war. While there seems to be some light at the end of this tunnel, the future still remains uncertain. And as conflicts in the Middle East continue to arise, our trust and our faith in those who wear the uniform will continue. Therefore, it's important that we maintain our moral responsibility to care for those who volunteer to serve our nation in uniform and their families. Some of the highlights of the bill that support our troops include a 1.6% pay raise, authority for the Secretary of Defense to establish apprenticeship programs to help in the transition of service members. And over the past several years, the subcommittee has maintained a focus on sexual assault and harassment and remains committed to significantly reducing sexual assaults and harassment. The mark builds upon our substantial efforts last year, and I look forward to the additional proposals that our colleagues will be offering at the full committee. We continue to support military children. Once again, the mark includes an authorization of $30 million in the Department of Defense Impact 8 program, an additional $10 million for local educational agencies directly impacted by force structure changes and BRAC. Unfortunately, The subcommittee was unable to include any provisions that would move forward on the disabled veterans tax, the widow's tax, and fixing the reserve retirement issue. While I certainly understand the challenges that the chair faces, I hope that he will support any efforts in the future that would continue to address these issues. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I look forward to the meeting today.
Thank you very much, and I also want to thank Deb Wada for her extraordinary assistance, and again, in such a bipartisan manner. We will now, and also with Ms. Davis, I do look forward to working with you on the issues, the retiree pay reforms, the widow's tax. I'm even hopeful that next week that there can be some steps forward to address both all of the issues that you just raised. We will now proceed to mark up H.R. 1540, the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2012. The members should have before them copies of our subcommittee's mark and directive report language. Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with. Is there any discussion or question of the chairman's mark? And as we proceed into this, we're very fortunate that we have a person who is above any possible level of criticism in maintaining a 5-minute rule, Roger Zackheim. So he will enforce this strictly, but at this time, if anybody would like to make a comment, they're welcome to do so. Mr. Loebsack.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to address an issue that I believe is very important to TRICARE beneficiaries, and that is their ability to choose to utilize their local pharmacy. As you know, the Department of Defense has proposed an increase to the copay for prescriptions filled at a beneficiary's local pharmacy in order to incentivize the use of mail-order prescriptions. I have great concerns about essentially penalizing those who would like to talk to their local pharmacist about their prescription rather than simply receiving an anonymous package in the mail. Pharmacists play an absolutely critical role in health maintenance. They are trusted members of our communities who, especially in rural areas and small towns, and not just in Iowa, but in other states as well, have developed relationships with those they serve. The level of trust and the one-on-one attention that you receive from a pharmacist, I believe, are irreplaceable. In fact, in 2009, more than half of TRICARE prescriptions were filled at pharmacies, and only 8% were filled by mail order. I think that's a clear indication of the important role that pharmacists play in our health care. Additionally, filling prescriptions by mail order is not appropriate for medications that are needed immediately, such as those for an acute condition. Forcing a beneficiary to pay more to be able to speak to a pharmacist about how to properly take their medication or to fill urgently needed prescriptions is, I believe, inappropriate and would actually hamper the ability of beneficiaries to take charge of their own health. Mr. Chairman, I hope that going forward we will be able to work to ensure that TRICARE beneficiaries are able to choose the best way to fill their prescriptions without penalty, and I thank you for allowing me the time to speak on this today, and I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Loebsack, and I share your point of view. And my next-door neighbor is a community pharmacist, and I know that his daughter, who's also a pharmacist, that people really do rely on the one-to-one contact. Throughout this process, we examine the possibility of a carve-out for those needing medications for acute conditions for immediate attention. But with the mandatory spending costs greatly limited, any actions the committee could take. It's important to note that the advantages of other cost-sharing structures, such as one that encourages the use of generic medications and other lower-cost therapies. For example, it's estimated that for every 2% increase in generic medication utilization, $1 billion can be saved. Going forward, I look forward to working with you, Mr. Loebsack, and others to ensure the Department maintains its obligations to TRICARE beneficiaries, particularly retirees, and the increased copays do not negatively impact the care needed by those who obtain their prescription drugs and services from retail pharmacies. Is there anyone else that might like to make a comment or any amendment, any provision? If there is no further discussion, the chair lays before the members the text of the mark for consideration. Without objection, the mark is open for amendment at any point. There is, at this time, the question now occurs on adoption of the mark. So many as are in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the mark is adopted. I now recognize the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Jones, for the purpose of a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the subcommittee report the mark favorably to the full committee.
The question is on the motion of the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Jones. So many as are in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. A quorum being present, the ayes have it, and the mark is adopted. And without further objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Without objection, members have 5 legislative days within which to submit written statements into the record. So ordered. I also ask unanimous consent that the staff be authorized to make necessary conforming, technical, and clerical changes and to remove from the mark provisions that would cause the mark to refer to other committees or would result in additional direct spending or would result in an earmark. Without objection, so ordered. There being no further legislative business before the subcommittee, this meeting is adjourned.